to another D7 video. In this one I want to show you custom apps. Once you go to custom apps and config, you have different sections here, and they correspond to your different sections here where the custom app will live. First off, if you do create a custom app and you decide that you want it in another area of D7, or you just don't like the way I've put custom apps in there and you want them in a different area, you can actually open your config directory and you see all these custom install, custom make, custom malware, etc., etc. You can go in, for example, to the custom malware, just copy one of the CFG files, the config file. You can just copy that and paste it into another area, and that will put that in the new area. But moving along, we'll go back to the config. First off, you want to fill in, well, I guess, yeah, let's say you want to fill in the download URL first. First thing is first. Now you'll notice this is a download URL / FTP path. FTP is an option. It allows you to, if you have your own FTP server configured here, it allows you to download an app from your own FTP server, of course via FTP. I don't think anyone actually uses that functionality, so we'll not really cover it, although there's not much else to say about it. Let's talk about it as if it were an HTTP download. First off, the download URL may or may not contain the file name on the end. It may contain something like this on the end of a PHP file or a redirect or something like that. So even if whether there is or not a download file name at the end of the URL, you need to specify the file name here. And that is because D7 has no way of knowing what the download file name is, because it's not always a download file name that's on the end of a URL. One neat trick about this is that you can actually use this to download a file and rename it at the same time. I actually do this in the case of, for example, Super Anti-Spyware. You'll see here, of course, sasportable.php is the end of the URL. Now, if you were to download just direct from a web browser the sasportable.php, I believe in this case it will download, and the file name will be not random, but you won't be able to predict necessarily what the file name is. It may have a date in it. It may have a version number in it. And that could vary, of course, from time to time. So what you would do is set a static file name here, sas.com. Let's call it that because that's what I use. And in this particular instance, it will always download that file no matter what the name of it is as sas.com. So D7 will always be able to find sas.com. So that's another little feature that you can use that for, but it is required, period. Then we have the 64-bit only app download URL. 64-bit only is, of course, for 64-bit versions of an application when there are, when there is one. Now, if you have the application configured to run on 32 and 64-bit platforms, and there is a 64-bit version, of course it will download that app. If you're on the 64-bit platform and there is not a 64-bit version, it will still download from the primary download location. That's why I don't call it 32-bit. It's just the primary download location. Moving along, we have spoof referring URL. That is probably only used, I think, by Super Anti-Spyware. Because if you're not coming from this particular page on that website, you'll get a different download. So you have to spoof that you are essentially fooling the website into thinking that you're coming from a certain page, so it will deliver a certain download to you. But again, I think of all of my custom apps, the Super Anti-Spyware is the only one that does that, and your apps probably won't you won't have the need for that. Then we have always re-download if app is greater than X number of days old. I default that to 7. That's useful, of course, if D7 automatically downloads an app for you on Monday. Well, let's set that to 4. So by the time Friday rolls around, you still have that same version, that same app in your third-party tools directory because it hasn't been cleaned out. So D7 will then re-download that app to make sure you have a current version. Now, if, of course, internet is not available at the time, it will use, or there's a problem downloading, it will use the existing download. Of course, we have app name. You can name it anything you want. However, I would not use any special characters because this name has to comply with file name, with your standard Windows file name naming conventions. So you can't use like Alt 6 or Alt 5, the percent sign. You can't use those in this particular thing. Don't use quotes, etc., etc. Anything that you could not create a standard file name with, you can't use here. Okay, then we have next in the list, run installer first when app not found. Well, basically that's the app below this that you have configured to run, the primary app, which in this case I have SAS.com. If after the download that app is not found, it will run an installer that you configure here. Well, if the download is an installer, say I have setup.exe for the download, you may have still SAS.com for the actual executable to run, but in that case you would configure this field to run setup and of course check the box. Now you want it to be as automated as possible, so to the right of that we have installer params, parameters. Typical installer parameters are /silent, /very silent, whatever they are for whatever installer that you're using. MSIs are a little bit different. So your mileage may vary. You're going to have to figure out what those parameters are, or if there are silent install parameters, though most apps tend to have them. Then, of course, we have the app path executable name. Of course, this isn't valid for this app, so I'll remove those. But we have the app path executable name. That is the actual application path. Let me find a smaller download real quick. How about Gmer? Perfect, perfect. Okay. Never fill this out manually, lest you make a mistake. Always use the browse button. Reason for that is zip files. They vary. If you're downloading a zip file, we'll just go ahead and actually this is the thing to do. Before using that and before you can use browse, of course the app has to be there. So let's download it. Use the test button. It not only tests the download of the app to make sure that it will download properly, but it also enables you to use the browse button to search directly for that file. So let's go ahead and test. And you'll see the download is receiving. I'll just move that down here. I was thinking that Gmer would be a faster download, but okay, so we have the success message, successfully downloaded and extracted the app. So Gmer was a zip file. The thing about the zip file is that when you download something and it's a zip file, you open it up or extract it. Sometimes all of the files in the zip are in the root of the zip. Sometimes they are in a subfolder of the zip file. Sometimes they are in a subfolder and a subfolder of the zip file. Often that's the same name as the zip file. It just has to do with the way people originally compressed the files. So D7 will, of course, get confused. It doesn't know where these files are, whether they're in a folder or a subfolder or whatever. So you see right here, when we browse, I see that instead of extracting out here, like some apps will, in the root of our third-party tools, they will extract into a subfolder. And since you've already tested the download, the file is there and you can just simply browse for it. That way you won't make a mistake in putting in the proper path for that file. Note that there is no beginning to this path leading up to the third-party tools directory where everything inside D7 is stored. And the reason for that, of course, is because D7 is a portable app. Now, D7 knows where it is, so it knows where its third-party directory is. What it doesn't know is everything beyond that, the app you're trying to run. So that's all that you put in here. Then below that, we have the 64-bit only, which also corresponds to the 64-bit only download URL, but that's not necessarily the case. For example, if there were the same download had the same app download, for example, had both 32 and 64-bit versions in there, you would not need to fill this out, of course, but you would still need to fill this out. If you're running on a 64-bit platform, likewise, the same thing is for the download URL. If the main application is 32 and 64-bit compatible, then it will be run if this field is not filled out. Next, we have app command line parameters. Very similar to your installer parameters up here, app command line parameters are there for you to add those parameters to the application to manipulate it in whatever way that is you see fit. For example, and there are a lot of things. I'm just going to look at Hitman Pro, but there are a lot of things you can do with the command line parameters to an app, and that depends on the app entirely. Some apps do not even have command line parameters, but of the ones that do, we'll look at them. Hitman Pro, for example, has a scan, which starts an automatic scan, a no install switch, which doesn't install the app, and a log switch, which enables you to specify a log file name. Now, there are variables that you can use here, and you'll have to see the website. Or maybe you won't. If you'll look down here, as you hover the mouse over app command line parameters, it does have a list of the variables that you can use. Variables supported, blah, 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 blah. What these do, for example, in this log switch that tells you where to specify a log file name, the variable malReportDir allows you to, or rather expands to the D7's malware report directory. Then, of course, you'll give it the file name, and then we have another variable which actually is not listed at the bottom. It's very new. Is the date variable, and that will insert a date timestamp at the end of, and you see here I have it in the middle of the file name before the .txt, so that will insert the date timestamp at the end of the file name. That's very useful if you run the app multiple times on the same system. Say one app, one run does the initial cleaning, and then another run to verify that everything is clean. You don't want those log files overwriting each other. So using the date variable in there is very helpful. But basically, the point of the app command line parameters is hopefully your application also will allow for automated usage, and that's where D7 Auto and other things use that functionality and find that invaluable, because that allows your app to be fully automated so you don't have to click all the time. Now, not every app supports that. Hitman Pro, for example, does support automation in starting the scan, but not in completing the scan. You have to do that manually. So that is just a limitation of Hitman Pro. There are other apps, for example, Malwarebytes, which I don't have a config for in here. That's actually an internal function. But let me see if I can find one. Or not. Not on the malware page. Let's actually customize install. Yeah, Patch My PC, for example. Auto will just run in the whole app, the whole routine automatically and terminate. Then below that, good thing I got here, import config files before running. We have a checkbox also for update after. What this does allows you to import a registry file or run a script like a batch file or something else before running the application. The reason for that may be that your reg file, and I don't actually have that one here, but I will show you a reg file, the page defrag from sysinternals. Here's one. EULA accepted, so it does not prompt you to accept the EULA every time that you run it. That's what that is useful for. Update afterwards means that if, for example, you run the app, say it's not automatic, and you run Patch My PC, for example, in the manual mode, you may change some settings in Patch My PC, and those settings are saved to Patch My P's registry key, which is also this field below. This registry key, if you have the update after thing check mark, and you also have the registry key filled out, it will export that registry branch to this file name and save it so that the next time you run Patch My PC, it will import the updated registry file. That's great when you want to change settings and you want them to perpetuate from subsequent runs of the app. So in this particular case with Patch My PC, it would be useful for you to run Patch My PC manually, configure it the way you like it with these, of course, with these options in place, close the app, the settings get saved into the reg file, and then the next time you can run Patch My PC Auto and you won't have to worry about re-importing those settings. Below that, we have copy logs. This will copy, of course, the log files from the application to our reports directory or our malware reports directory. And of course, you can optionally move those files. Some apps, like Hitman Pro I showed you before, allowed you to specify the log file name and path in the command line parameters. Some apps do not. So that is the purpose of the copy logs function. After the app is run, it will find that log file. Variables are also supported here, and you'll get a list of variables below that are supported. And it does say and more. So there are a few more that are supported. You can visit the website to find out. It also supports everything that it supports here. In this particular case, I've got system drive, which is typically C:. I have a backslash. Then I have computer name. Patch My PC always creates a rich text file with named what the computer name is. Because I happen to know that, and it always puts it in C. That's what I put here. So D7 will look for that file when Patch My PC is finished. Then we have activity log verbiage. Activity log is something that you actually enable on the reports section. This checkbox, log all actions performed within D7, creates an activity log.html in your reports store. So essentially, what you can do is specify your own text here, like we can just say patched critical applications and installed Windows updates. And from now on, every time you run Patch My PC, it will use this text in your reports. Now you can see those reports if you open the report viewer. You have your activity log here. Activity log, blah, 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 date and time. This is D7 started. This is a custom app I ran. But your activity log text will appear there if you run this custom app. Then below that we have app website or online help file. Now, I don't have this filled out for all of my custom apps, and I should. I promise you I will soon. What that does, of course you can go there now, is to enable you to, well, just visit the website. If you need some help with using the application, you can put that there. Or if, for example, the application does not download for some reason or another, you can find an application that has that configured, which I don't know if I do or not. Right click on it, highlight it, right click on it, and you can choose Go to Apps Website. And if the website is configured, it will go there. Aha! And I have one for Oscillogix Disk Defrag Portable, and the app I have website I have configured there shows you takes you directly to the page with their command line parameters. So that's what that's for and how to use it. Below that we have run app on these platforms. We've got servers. Not every app you want to run on a server. Now this is especially useful for auto mode because as you're running these apps manually, you tend to know where they can be used and where they cannot. But in auto mode, D7 has no way of knowing. So you want these to be checked or unchecked depending on, especially for auto mode. So D7 will know to skip that. You can choose servers, XP, Vista, 7, 8, 32-bit, and 64-bit platforms. So, for example, if you have an app that just will not run on 64-bit, you can uncheck that. and you won't have to worry about it, like a lot of your earlier rootkit user mode root, not user mode, but your earlier rootkit um, detection apps never seem to make the jump to 64-bit. And there's a good reason for that, but that's not a topic for this time. Next, we have Run as System. This actually will run the app always under the local system account. The advantages of running an app under the local system account are that it will bypass file system and registry permissions. Some apps will not run under the system account, and some apps probably shouldn't be run under the system account. But the option is there for you if you choose to use that. I don't generally recommend it though. Then we have randomized file name. Malware loves to block files based on file name, block them from execution. You can check the randomized, like combo fix, for example. You can check the randomized file name, and D7 will, of course, rename that to some weird random name and launch it. That helps out in a lot of situations. Finally, well, not finally, we have wait for termination. And this is something that you generally want to check. And it's only for auto mode. It doesn't apply for running manually. But wait for termination simply means that D7 will wait for this app to terminate, finish what it's doing, and close before it moves on to the next item in auto mode. We have disable cloud sharing. If you have a custom app that you've created and you participate in dcloud and you share your apps in dcloud through the custom apps sharing dialog here, disabling that by enabling this checkbox will ensure that if you share your custom apps with dcloud so other users can find them, it will not share this particular app that you've configured. The usefulness for this function is, for example, if you have an app like Ninite that you use and it's got your serial number or I don't know, something. Don't want that shared. Next we have run inside cmd.exe. This was put here because some apps are kind of finicky about finding their own configuration files. Running them inside command prompt for some reason alleviates that problem. There are a couple other quirky little situations where you might want to use this checkbox. Can't think of them all right now and don't really care to go over them because it's a rarity. Then we have wait in service mode. What wait in service mode does when D7 runs the application, like for example in the case of combo fix. Combo fix will terminate or do its best to terminate D7 because it doesn't know what D7 is. So what you want to do is check this box if you're configuring an app like that. So D7 will then run the app, close itself, but not before installing itself as a system Windows service. Since D7 is running as a service, it will also be configured to continually restart itself. So if the app tries to terminate D7, it will continually restart itself and continually wait in service mode until that app is finished running. When D7 detects the app is done running, it will then pop out of service mode and start up normally again. Audible alert prior to running this app or display prompt after running this app. Both of these are auto mode options. Obviously they do what they sound like. Audible alert gives you an alert before running the app. The usefulness of this being if you're, in auto mode, and this app requires a manual intervention, it can't run completely automated, then you might want an alert for that. And likewise, display prompt after running this app. Well, it actually that's for a completely different purpose. That'll just display an OK message box after the app is run. The reason for that is some apps D7 cannot wait on this wait for termination box right here. Some apps that feature just doesn't work. And the reason why is because the app may start itself or D7 starts the app starts, but then it may in turn launch a separate app or relaunch itself. And its original process is terminated, therefore D7 doesn't wait for it anymore. In that case, you want to display a prompt after running the app so D7 doesn't proceed to the next item in auto mode once that original process terminates. Wow, I think I've got through just about all of this. Of course, we have save and test. That will just save the app's options, test the download, and run the app. That's it.